feel like a groom in the middle of a wedding cake now with this background now. Before I start, I was thinking some of the cultures and Iranian cultures and Indian subcontinent cultures, when they mention the name of Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha, they say Bibi Fatima Zahra, Bibi Fatima, Bibi Hazrat Zahra. I googled that and I searched that. Why the name Bibi? Well, in the Indian culture, when they want to respect someone, a lady, respectful lady, they call her Bibi. But as you all know, a lot of words in Urdu driven from Farsi language. And Bibi in Farsi, I don't know if that's true also in Urdu, but it means grandmother. Like Bibi, even Arab, they use it, Bibi. So why do they call it Bibi? I mean, from different angle, if we look at it, why they call it Bibi, like grandmother? Well, if you remember that hadith that Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Prophet and Amir al-Mu'mineen he says about the Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ana wa Aliyun abawa hadhihi al-ummah. Me and Ali are the fathers of this nation. And what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says about his daughter, Ummu Abiha. So she becomes our grandmother. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير أنبياء الله وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين المصطفى الأمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين الغر الميامين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين مهدي هذه الأمة وخاتم الأئمة الحجة بن الحسن العسكري روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدم الفداء. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر صدق الله العلي العظيم. The birth of Lady Fatima salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha was a turning point in human history. And the reason behind it is why that Lady Fatima salawatullahi wa salamu alayha was the reason of this change is, of course, the role she plays and the position she took in this world and hereafter. First of all, you see, she is the continuous and the chain between the prophethood and the imamah. She is the link between those two. If it wasn't for her, there was no Imam al-Mahdi. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the Fatima salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha, linked the prophethood with imamah. So you see, A'imma even salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim, and on top of all of them, of course, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says that وَلَنَا الْفَخْرِ بِسَيِّدَةِ النِّسَاء فَاطِمَةَ salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. I am honored that I am the husband of Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha. Amir al-Mu'mineen says. Al-Imam Sahib al-Asr wa al-Zaman, what he says about his mother Fatima salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, وَلِيَ فِي إِبْنَةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. And I have a perfect example of the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So, some might ask, okay, you know, at this day of age, how can we benefit from the life of Fatima salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, the way she lived this life? Well, some may argue, okay, the way they lived back then, say maybe in a muddy kind of hut, they used to ride horses instead of cars. We can't do that now, even though it would have been very awesome if we could now, right? So they didn't use a certain things, and now we do that. The whole world changed, and it will evolve again and change. So how can we benefit from her life? How can we apply what she did and how she lived on this day and age? Well, I say this, for every day and age, Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, like Quran, was shining. That hadith says Quran is like the sun and moon. For every day they shine, that's a new day. And Fatima Zahra is driven from the house that Quran was sent. So it's her life. If we learn from her life, it will shine upon all our life and will glorify the life of humankind. And nowadays, in this day of age, I think we need even more and more to study the life of Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha. So, who we might ask first? Well, first of all, of course, it's on top of all of them, it's Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Muhammad. And what he says about his daughter. You know, you now just mentioned the hadith that the woman in this life, the woman, a lot of men were perfect, became perfect. The prophets, the apostles, the messengers. But from women's side, it's just 4 women. The first of all, Asiyah bint Muzahim, the wife of Fir'aun. The second one is Maryam ibn Imran, the lady Maryam alayha salam, the mother of Isa ibn Maryam ala nabiyina wa alihi wa alayhi salatu wassalam. And the third is the wife of the Prophet, Khadijah bint Khuwaylid, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. And lastly, and the most perfect of them all, is Fatima bint Mohammed sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. سيدة نساء العالمين من الأولين والآخرين. The mistress of ladies of the world, of both worlds, this and hereafter. So one of the scholars was asked about this, why عالمين? Why Rasulullah? Of course, ما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah, he chose the word عالمين, not al-alam. Why عالمين? He says, I'm not really you know, this scholar that I'm talking about, his name he passed away about more than 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. His name was Sayyid Muhammad al-Qazwini. He built the first mosque in Sydney, Australia, by the name of Masjid Al-Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. If you go visit, he was one of the people who went there back then and built this mosque and participated in building this mosque. And he is an author of a series of books called Min al-Mahdi ila al-Lahad. It's about Fatima al-Zahra, Min al-Mahdi ila al-Lahad, from the birth until martyrdom. And this particular one has been translated to Farsi and Urdu. This one, so if anyone wants to read it, it's a beautiful book. So he was asked about why Alameen. He said, I'm not sure. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wants to show his authority on people, the authority on this world, He says in the first surah in the Quran, what? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. To see the extent that the influence of Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha is. You know, one of the name of Fatima, as we all know, is the one that we are been prevented of knowing her and the full knowledge of her. So at the Day of Judgment, famous hadith narrated from different scholars, from different school of thoughts even, about that Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha comes at the day of the judgment, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you can go into heaven. And she says, I am but waiting for something. He says, what? Ask, what do you want, O Fatima? She says, the people didn't know me. I want this day, this is the last day, for the people of the world to know me. And he says to her, do whatever you want, O Fatima. And she starts picking up her Shia from her enemies, like birds picking a good grain from a bad grain, and let them enter to heaven. And even there's a continuation for this hadith, that the Shia of Fatima Zahra, the true Shia, not me of course, they come and stand there. What are you waiting for? Now we want for the people to know what a Shia of Fatima worth. What is the Shia of Fatima? What do you want? Do whatever you want. So they start picking people who they love, who they want to enter with them into heaven and paradise. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the second one becomes who? The closest or the most closest people to her is أمير المؤمنين وقائد الغر المحجلين أسد الله الغالب علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. What he says about Fatima Zahra صلوات الله وسلامه عليها. He says, فوالله ما أغضبتها ولا أكرهتها على أمر حتى قبضها الله عز وجل ولا أغضبتني ولا عصت لي أمرا ولقد كنت أنظر إليها فتنكشف عني الهموم والأحزان. So Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I never upset her. I never made her angry. So first Amir al-Mu'mineen says that. It's not the other way around. And then what he says, and never force her to do something. Never. And you know, Fatima Zahra sacrificed herself for Amir al-Mu'mineen without Amir al-Mu'mineen even asking. نفسي لنفسك الفدا روحي لروحك الوقا. She sacrificed herself for Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salam. I mean, when he said, I never forced her to do anything. What else? And she never made me upset. She never angered me. And she never forced me to do something. And what else? This is interesting. كنت أنظر إليها فتنكشف عني الهموم والغموم. You know, Amir al-Mu'mineen's life was very hard. Salawatullahi wa salam alayhi. Especially after the passing away of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He lost half of his soul. He was lost after the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. أنا وعلي من شجرة واحدة. Me and Ali from the same tree, from one tree, and all the other creation of the different trees. Anyway, so he says that whenever I looked at her, I feel everything that upsets me goes away. You know, one person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and told him that I have a good wife. You know, you rarely see that. Someone who speaks good about his wife. Anyway, so he comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. One of the things is to, you know, at the day of judgment, they bring someone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered for the angels to take him to hellfire. He says, you never been thankful. He says, but I thanked you, O Allah. He says, yes, you thanked me. You didn't thank the person I give you the opportunity to thank me. You didn't thank them. You need to thank them first. Anyway, so this guy comes to Rasulullah and says to Rasulullah, O Prophet of Allah, I have a good wife. I have a good wife. He says, how come? He says, one of the attributes is, whenever I come to the house, I come home, she greets me with open arms, with a smile. She greets me. Okay, what else? Whenever I want to leave, she escorts me. Whenever I'm upset, she comes and sit next to me, asking me, what upsets you? If it's for this material world, don't be upset. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us in the Holy Quran, وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. The rizq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't be upset. This world comes and goes. But if it's for hereafter, if it's for akhir, be upset. Maybe you done something bad. Maybe you sinned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe you had some shortcoming. Be upset. Fix it. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he tells him, first of all, tell her that you are one of the women of heaven. Give her that good news. What's the rest? The rest is amazing. Rasulullah says that each day, there's different narration. Each day, she gets the reward of 70 martyrs. That she lives with you, she gets the reward of 70 martyrs. I was thinking to myself, why the women, they have just 4 women to be perfect as an example. Of course, for example, Asya bint Muzahib, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَضَرَبَ استغفر الله ربي أتوب إليه وَضَرَبَ نعم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا امْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ. Allah gave an example for the people, for the faithful, the wife of Fir'aun, like women and men alike. But why just 4 women and a lot of like 125,000 of prophets and imams and apostles and all that? I thought to myself, well, we get distracted very easily, man. You know, if someone is talking to us, all of a sudden the phone rings. Oh, well, someone's ringing. Like something, you see shiny, you go after it. Like, we always need someone to remind us, to bring us back. You tell your son to do something several times until he does it, but you tell your daughter maybe once and she does it. So maybe that is the reason. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So one of the things is there's a narration that Allah never gave something better for a mu'min after Islam like a good wife. Like a good wife. A good wife can be what? The wolf to a man. She can direct his path. Not just him, she directs the path of his offspring too. So one of the things is to see that Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, even though she is the princess of all world, the princess that her name never dies. You know, how many princesses do you know the name of? You know, it's like a few handful. Maybe like in 100 years, no one will even mention them. But Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, maybe there is definitely more than 40 million Muslim is named after Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. So her name is living on. But how did she live? How did she live? Even though Rasulullah gave her fadak, and the profit and money that came from fadak wasn't a garden, wasn't a small place, no, it was massive. That the money that came from fadak, what could let the army of the Muslim march, funded the army of the Muslims. They say between, of course they say between because it depends on the seasons, so it was between 25,000 golden dinar to 70,000 golden dinar. But how did she live? One day she put a curtain, a new curtain. Rasulullah, when he comes from his travels or from a war, the first house he visits is house of Fatima. He went there, all of a sudden he saw that new curtain. So he didn't go. He went to the masjid. Fatima Zahra immediately knew what's wrong. She took that curtain, she gave it to Imam Hassan. Oh Imam Hassan, take it to the Rasulullah and tell Rasulullah to sell it and give the money to the poor. Even though they were rich, but what? They give everything. To who? The poor and the people who are in need. So that's one lesson. To be a good housewife. To be, no, not just that. To be a good husband. What else? How she raised Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein and Sayyidah Zainab salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. You see, from night till dawn, Imam Hassan sees Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha sits and do dua just for who? Just for the neighbors. What that teaches you? What that teaches the kid? So first of all, she's an example. She sets an example that a woman is in her mihrab, not on her phone all the time, or on the TV, or chatting, whatever. The man also, the same thing goes for the man. Don't get me wrong here. But, so what he sees is that, you know, the kids, of course, they see their mothers more than they see their fathers. So he sees that the neighbors are having what are more important now. So that's why you see in the Surah Al-Dahr and Surah Al-Insan that وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We give our food that we need to who? To the poor, to the orphan, to the what? A prisoner. You know, some might argue sometimes that I need to give this money to a Muslim. No, it says a prisoner. The prisoner wasn't a Muslim. You know, it's obvious. The prisoner at that day of age in the Medina, he wasn't a Muslim. Was a person who got caught while fighting the Muslim. Still, he was hungry. They needed to feed him. Okay, just, one person, right? One loaf of bread should be enough for him. I will give him my bread. Amir al-Mu'mineen might do it and that's it. No, Fatima Zahra does it. And Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein do it as well. What? For 3 consecutive nights. They needed more. But what they teaches us, what they teach us is to, even if you are in need, give to the people. That's all right. So that's why you see Abi Abdullah al-Husayn salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, at the day of Ashura, he gives his life for what? To preserve this religion, to preserve this deen, for the people like me and you. So, what Abi Abdullah salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, interesting. You know, the hadith is really heartaking. Hadith is from Imam Al-Abidin salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, that my father, Abi Abdullah al-Husayn, came and he was covered with blood. And before he bid me farewell, before he goes, he says, "Oh son, I will tell you 3 advice. I will give you 3 advice. First of all, is a dua that my mother Fatima taught me. I will teach you this dua. It's for the time of hardship. You know." And Imam Zain al-Abidin needed that dua, salawatullahi wa salam. But see, Imam Hussein, he told his son the dua that his mother taught him. What that teaches us, that the mothers, they have a huge role. The majority of the people who became really good people became because of their mothers. So Imam says, and it's a famous dua, Allahumma bihaqqi Yasin wal Quran al-Hakim. Yes, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The second thing is to be patient. To be patient. You know, in the house, when you see the man doesn't have patience. You know, some might say about the Muslim that you have in your Quran to beat your wives. To beat them. So, what do you say to that? Well, first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that gradually. Says, if they are what? If they are a kind of a betrayal woman that argues all the time, doesn't listen, a woman that is it's a problem, not a woman that, I mean, she maybe put a bit of more salt in her food and you come and argue with her. No, the woman with ill intention. You first advise her, don't do this, please. The best, ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. First, then what? اهجروهن في المضاجع. Don't sleep next to her as a punishment. Third, beat her. But what that beating means. First, the hadith clarify this. All the hadith. Clarify this. How to beat them. Beat them how? With a stick that you clean your teeth with. Like what nowadays? So what? With a toothbrush. With that. And how? A way that you don't leave a mark. You don't leave a mark that it becomes red or blue or whatever color. If you do that, even if it was her fault and you doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like you understand, says you need to pay a penalty, a gold penalty, gold coins you need to pay. We have a lot of hadith that whoever extend his hand to beat his wife, he extended his hand in hellfire, and he will be punished and will be slapped by angels of torture. So that is one thing that to understand, that when Quran says something, it's not without a reason. Anyway, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala. And the third, what Imam salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says to his son, Imam Zain al-Abidin salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, don't oppress people. إياك وظلم من لا يجد عليك ناصرا إلا الله. Be very careful from oppressing a person who doesn't have anyone. A person who doesn't have anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah's wrath will come very fast on them. We have one of the three things that the wrath of Allah is very fast and very severe, is to oppress a person who doesn't have anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we saw what happened with Yazid ibn Muawiyah, with Bani Umayyah, with Bani al-Abbas. They oppressed a people who didn't have anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you oppress your wife, bear this in your mind, that you're oppressing a weaker creature, a weaker person than you are. So if you do that, wait for the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In this life and the hereafter will be much more severe. So, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Lastly is what binds people together in the family. Is one of the things is lacking all the time in our life. You know, when you want to read a love story, a true love story, not a mythical one like Romeo and Juliet, like Layla and Majnun, like all these nonsense. When you want to see and read a true love story. Read the love story between Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib and Fatima Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, and how much Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi loved his wife Fatima. You know, similar to that also is a story that the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to Rasulullah, and they wanted to ask Rasulullah sallallahu wasallam alayhi for the hands and for the permission that Ali ibn Abi Talib comes and asked the hands of Fatima Zahra in marriage. So when they came there, when they went to the Rasulullah and his wife were there, some of them, as the narration says, that multiple times they were very jealous. So they mentioned the name of Khadija bint Khuwaylid, his first wife, and he starts weeping and crying. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, no one was like Khadija, no one was ever gonna become like Khadija sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also, Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, when he received the news of Fatima's passing away, what he did? First of all, he passed away. He went unconscious. Then he regained conscious, and then he says that I cannot bear this. He's the mountain of patience. He sat next to her grave, weeping for Fatima salawatullahi wa salamu alayha. If you want to know true love, see the life of Fatima salawatullahi wa salamu alayha and Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, so that we can derive some benefits and shed some light on their life and reap some of those benefits and those enlightenment of their lives, and shine it upon ours, inshallah. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cultivate all our hearts with the love of Fatima salawatullahi wa salamu alayha and her progeny salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us this tawfiq of being the Shia and the true muhabbin of Fatima salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make her our shafi' at the day of judgment. Innahu waliyyu tawfiq. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.